If a babysitter only shows up on your cameras, but never in real life, would you still trust what you're seeing? Because this family did, until the cameras started showing something that shouldn't have been there. I'm attorney Lauren Blake, and in my 18 years of practicing law, I've handled custody wars, stalking cases, digital impersonation, you name it. But nothing, absolutely nothing, resembled the night a couple brought me a baby monitor that made the hair on my neck stand straight up. Before we go deeper, make sure you subscribe, because what you're about to hear is a case every parent needs to know. It began 3 months earlier with Ethan and Marissa, a young couple in Ohio trying to balance newborn exhaustion and impossible work hours. They hired a babysitter named Clara James, a woman who came with flawless reviews, perfect references, and a calm, caring voice over the phone. She checked every box, and at first everything looked safe. Too safe. Clara insisted on minimal contact due to a severe immune condition. She used the smart lock to enter, sent texts throughout the day, and always left before Ethan arrived home. In their exhausted state, the couple didn't question any of it. Then came the baby monitor. One evening, Ethan checked the camera from work. Clara was there rocking Lily gently, humming a soft tune, but something was wrong. Her face wouldn't focus. Every other object in the room looked crystal clear, but Clara's features flickered in and out like a glitch. The next night, the same thing, and the next. But the moment everything changed was the night Marissa passed Lily's door and heard silence. Yet the monitor showed Clara sitting there, perfectly still, staring directly into the camera. Marissa froze. She stepped into the nursery. The chair was empty, the air was cold. But on the screen, Clara slowly tilted her head and smiled. That was the moment they walked into my office, pale, terrified, clutching the monitor like it was a warning from another world. They didn't ask for legal protection or advice. They asked me something no parent should ever have to say out loud. "Miss Blake, if Clara never entered our home, then who has been watching our daughter?" And that's where this case begins. It was something far stranger, something that made even me question the line between what we see and what's really there. When Ethan and Marissa sat across from me, they looked like people who hadn't slept in days. Marissa's fingers trembled around the baby monitor, and Ethan kept glancing toward the office door as if expecting someone or something to follow them. I asked them to start from the beginning, to tell me every detail they were too scared to admit before. Marissa took a deep breath and said, "Miss Blake, the cameras show Clara inside the house even when the door logs say no one came in." That caught my attention immediately. As a lawyer, I've worked hundreds of digital evidence cases. Footage can be manipulated, sure, deepfakes, edited clips, time offsets. But this? A person appearing in your home without any physical entry, that requires intent, planning, understanding the family's routines. Someone had been watching them long before they realized it. I asked to see the messages Clara had sent. Marissa unlocked her phone. Her inbox was full of gentle, professional texts. "Lily fell asleep early today. Feeding her now. She cried for a bit, but she's okay." But the timestamps bothered me. Every message came exactly at the same minute mark as if scheduled. No delays, no typos. No human rhythm. That was the first thing that made me uneasy. Ethan leaned forward. "It gets worse." He handed me an iPad with saved camera clips. The first showed Clara rocking the baby. At first glance, it seemed like normal babysitting until I noticed her movements. They weren't natural. They were too controlled, like someone animating a loop. In one clip, the rocking chair moved, but Clara's dress didn't shift with the motion. It hung stiff, like fabric frozen in place. In another, her hands didn't quite touch Lily. They hovered just barely above skin level, yet Lily reacted as if being cradled. I felt my stomach tighten. Technology can be manipulated, but no editing software moves exactly in sync with a baby's breathing. Then Ethan played the clip that changed everything. The room was empty. Marissa had just walked by moments earlier. But on the screen, Clara slowly entered the frame from the far corner, even though there was no door there. She just appeared like a shadow forming into a figure. She sat down, folded her hands, and stared straight into the camera. No blinking, no shifting, no sound, just a still, watching presence. I asked them if they had ever seen Clara in person at all. Not once. Not at the door, not outside, not in passing. Their entire relationship with her existed through screens. And then Marissa told me the part that convinced me this wasn't just a digital impersonation or a rogue app glitch. It was something more deliberate, more invasive. "Miss Blake," she whispered, "last night I unplugged the camera, but the live feed stayed on." That sentence stopped me cold. If a device streams without power, the signal isn't coming from your house, it's coming from somewhere else. Somewhere watching you? Before I could begin forming a legal plan, protective order, digital forensics, police coordination, Ethan said something that made every instinct in me go still. "We tried calling Clara today," he said. A man answered. He said Clara James died 6 years ago. I looked at them not as an attorney but as a human being trying to ground herself in logic. But their fear was real. Their evidence was real. And now, a dead woman's number was texting regularly, sending updates and appearing on video feeds. Something or someone was entering their home without ever opening a door. I wish they had called me first. Because the way that night unfolded, what they did, what the cameras captured would become the turning point of the entire case, the moment this stopped being strange and became terrifying. Ethan told me what happened later, voice shaking like he was reliving each second. After discovering Clara's supposed death, the couple agreed, no more silence, no more pretending it was just tech issues. They needed answers. So at 11:43 p.m., after Lily fell asleep, they went into the nursery together. Marissa held her phone with the live feed open. Ethan stood by the crib, heart pounding so loud he said he could hear it in his ears. The camera showed the room exactly as it was, quiet, empty. Ethan leaned close to the lens and whispered, "Clara, are you here?" Nothing, no glitch, no movement, just the hum of the air vent. But then Marissa swore she saw it, the tiniest flicker in the corner of the screen. A single pixel shift, like a shadow adjusting itself. Ethan whispered again, "If you can hear me, show yourself." This time, the camera didn't flicker. It changed. The image blurred for a split second, then stabilized. And there she was, Clara sitting in the rocking chair, except Ethan was standing right in front of it and the chair was empty. Clara existed only on the screen. Marissa's first instinct was to run, but something stopped her. The Clara on the monitor lifted her hand and pointed, not at the baby, not at the parents, but directly at Marissa's phone, as if she knew exactly where she was watching from. Marissa dropped the phone and the camera feed jolted, blurring. The image glitched, Clara's face stretching, shrinking, folding in on itself like pixels melting, and when the picture snapped back to normal, Clara wasn't in the chair anymore. She was standing behind Ethan, not physically, not in the room, only on the screen, but the implication was clear: whatever Clara was, it wasn't bound by walls, doors, or physical distance. Marissa screamed for Ethan to move. Ethan spun around, but there was nothing behind him. On the monitor, Clara tilted her head and copied his movement a second later, mirroring him like a delayed reflection. Ethan backed away from the camera, and the Clara figure stepped forward closer until her face filled the screen. The eyes were the worst part. They weren't blurred. They were perfectly focused for the first time. Cold, flat, almost studying them. Marissa grabbed Ethan's arm. "We have to leave, now." They rushed out of the nursery and slammed the door. But Lily started crying hard. The desperate, panicked cry of a baby who feels something wrong in the room. Ethan turned the monitor back on. The figure wasn't looking at the camera anymore. She was looking at the crib, reaching toward Lily. And without opening the door, without any footsteps, without any sound, Ethan swore the temperature in the hallway dropped so suddenly his breath became visible. That's when they fled the house. When they came to me the next morning, they weren't just frightened, they were convinced their daughter wasn't safe for another second inside that home. And as their attorney, I had to decide something I've never had to consider before. How do you protect a child from someone who appears only on screens? The moment we handed everything, every clip, every camera, every device, to a digital forensics team I've trusted for years. These are professionals who can dissect a pixel the way a surgeon dissects tissue. If something is fake, they'll find it. If something is altered, they'll expose it. If something is technologically impossible, they'll tell you that too, but nothing prepared them for this. The team set up in a secure lab, white walls, controlled lighting, monitors everywhere. Ethan and Marissa sat in silence while the lead analyst, Marcus Hale, pulled up the first clip of Clara rocking the baby. At first, he watched quietly, taking notes. Then he frowned, then he rewound, then he zoomed in. "Okay, that's not right," he muttered. He isolated Clara's figure frame by frame. Her outline didn't behave like a recorded human. Normally, human skin and fabric show microshadows, tiny shifts in contrast caused by breathing, blinking, moving air. Clara had none. Her edges were too clean, too consistent, like a digital sticker placed on top of real footage. But this wasn't an edit, and that's what made Marcus's face go pale. He opened the raw metadata of the file, the digital fingerprint that shows the moment something is captured. The layer containing Clara's image wasn't in the file at the time of recording. It was blank, meaning the camera recorded an empty room and Clara was injected into the video stream afterward. Not added by Ethan, not added by Marissa, not added by any editing software. It was coming from outside their home, live, overriding the camera feed. Marcus ran a real-time traffic scan through the baby monitor's signal history. What he found made him push his chair back in disbelief. Someone had accessed their cameras dozens of times, but never through Wi-Fi. The intruder used a relay signal bouncing off a tower miles away, jumping from device to device until reaching the baby monitor. It was sophisticated. Calculated, criminal, not a casual hacker. Someone who knew how to avoid every traceable route. Marissa whispered, "So someone was watching us?" Marcus nodded grimly. "Not just watching. They were broadcasting something back to you." He opened another file, this time the clip where Clara pointed at Marissa's phone. He slowed it down to 100th speed and enhanced the part where Clara leaned forward. That's when we saw it. Her eyes weren't eyes. They were reflections, not reflecting the room, not reflecting Lily, but reflecting a different space. Bookshelves, a metal desk, a dark figure standing behind a console. Clara wasn't a real person inside the room. She was a projection filmed somewhere else and streamed live into their home. "That's impossible," Ethan said. "You're telling me someone was using her like a puppet?" Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. "No. I'm telling you the person controlling this wasn't just streaming video. They were scanning your daughter's nursery. They were mapping it in real time. They needed Clara to look like she belonged in the room." My blood went cold. This wasn't a haunting, wasn't a glitch, wasn't a dead babysitter returning. This was surveillance. High-level, directed, purposeful. Someone constructed Clara digitally and placed her inside their cameras like a test run. A rehearsal. A way to get closer without ever stepping foot in the home. Then Marcus played the most recent clip, the one from the night Ethan whispered to the camera. He highlighted a distortion behind Clara. A faint shimmer that the human eye wouldn't normally catch. And he enhanced it until the shape became clear. A silhouette. A person, standing behind the digital Clara, adjusting controls as if puppeteering her movements. We froze. Marissa grabbed my arm. "Who is that? What do they want?" And that's when Marcus revealed the most disturbing finding. Every time Clara appeared, the intruder wasn't just streaming video into the home. They were also downloading data out. Baby's sleep patterns, Marissa's daily schedule, home layout, entry points, audio logs. They weren't just watching, they were preparing. And in the very last frame of the footage, barely visible, buried in static, was a message burned into the pixels, like someone wanted us to find it. 3 words, "Almost ready now." After the forensics team discovered the message, "Almost ready now," I told Ethan and Marissa not to return to their house under any circumstance. But fear does strange things to people. It makes you desperate to prove you're still in control. It makes you believe you can outrun danger by pretending it isn't already at your door. They went back anyway. I found out what happened the next morning when Ethan called me, voice shaking so violently I could barely understand him. "Lauren, something tried to open the front door." According to the smart lock logs, it began at 2:17 a.m. The couple had been asleep in the guest room of Marissa's sister's house when their phones lit up with alerts. Front door override attempt detected. Authentication failed. Reattempt in 10 seconds. Ethan thought it was a glitch until he saw the lock status. Signal source, unknown, non-local, non-Wi-Fi. The same signature as the intruder who controlled Clara. He opened the live feed from his doorbell cam. The porch was empty, completely empty, but the lock began unlocking itself anyway. Click, click, click. Not fully opening, just testing. Testing the mechanism, testing resistance, testing how long before the alarm activated. The system triggered again, override attempt successful, but the door didn't swing open. Instead, the lock stopped halfway, like something out there realized the couple wasn't home. And that's when the second notification appeared: internal camera activated nursery. Marissa screamed when she saw it. They hadn't turned that camera on. They hadn't accessed it, and the room should have been pitch dark, but the feed lit up anyway, and Clara appeared, not in the rocking chair, not looking at the crib, not sitting still like before. She was standing just inside the bedroom doorway where a real person would enter, her head tilted, her fingers curled. Her image flickered slightly like someone adjusting her position from afar. And just behind her, only visible in a second of static, was the same dark silhouette from Marcus's analysis. No features, no face, just a tall, watching presence, hands moving as if controlling a puppet from behind a screen. Clara stepped forward, one digital foot at a time. But here's the part that terrified me personally. Because as a lawyer, as a mother, as a human being, I had no logical explanation for what the footage showed. Every time Clara stepped forward on the screen, the nursery door in real life moved with her. Slightly, inch by inch, like pressure pushing it open from the other side. Marissa sobbed as she told me this. It wasn't digital anymore. It was real. Something was syncing with the cameras trying to come through. Then the screen went black. The feed cut. All signals died at once. When the system rebooted, Clara was gone, but a new message appeared where the video should have been. Ready? That was the moment Ethan and Marissa knew they couldn't go home again, and it was the moment I realized this wasn't just surveillance anymore. It was escalation, movement, a transition from digital intrusion to physical presence. After the ready message and the smart lock override attempt, I contacted Detective Warren Hale, someone I've worked alongside on multiple cyber intrusion cases. Warren is calm, rational, never jumps to conclusions. When he arrived at my office and saw the footage, he didn't say a word for a full minute. Then he muttered, "Someone wanted more than access. They wanted presence." By sunrise, a full forensic team was at Ethan and Marissa's home. The couple stayed at a distance, watching from inside Warren's cruiser. I joined them partly to keep them calm, partly because I needed to see this myself. The team entered through the front door. No forced entry. No signs of physical intrusion, at least not at first, but inside the nursery everything was wrong. The crib sheets were pulled to one side like someone had run their hands across them. The rocking chair was turned toward the doorway, even though Ethan and Marissa swore it had been facing the window last time they saw it. The night light was unplugged. Small things, easy to overlook. But the kind of things you only notice when something is deeply, unnervingly off. Then Warren called out, "Lauren, you need to see this." His voice did not sound calm anymore. He pointed to the baby monitor on the dresser. It was powered off, completely unplugged, but the tiny green light, the one that indicates an active connection, was glowing. I watched as Warren lifted it. The device vibrated, a soft, rhythmic pulse, almost like breathing. He waved his hand in front of the camera lens. Nothing appeared on the screen. The feed was black, but the LEDs on the back flickered in response to his hand movement, as if tracking him. "Someone hardwired a secondary receiver in here," the tech agent said. "This monitor has been modified." "Modified by who?" Marissa whispered. That's when the tech agent removed the back cover. Inside the device, there was a second microchip, soldered in by hand, not factory-made, not standard, and definitely not something you find in consumer electronics. The chip wasn't recording the baby. It was scanning the room, mapping it, echolocating heat and movement, and beneath the chip was a tiny strip of tape. On it, written in thin, shaky handwriting, was a date, 11/3/22. Marissa's face drained of color. That was the day Lily was born. Before I could process that, another officer shouted from the hallway, "Detective, you're gonna want to see the basement." "Basement?" Ethan looked confused. "We don't use the basement. We haven't since we moved in. It's locked. We don't even have a key." Warren held up the basement door key. "It was in the smart lock panel, mixed in with your spare fobs." None of us understood why until he opened the door. The smell hit first: old dust, cold air, and something metallic. The basement was dim, lit only by the officers' flashlights. On the far wall was a folding metal table. On it sat a laptop, a signal booster, a small satellite router, and a pair of gloves, black, thin, worn down at the fingertips, exactly like the ones Clara always wore in the footage. Marissa gasped. Ethan swore under his breath. But the worst part wasn't the equipment. It was the chair in front of the table. A simple white plastic chair with a baby blanket draped over the back. Not theirs, not one they recognized. A blanket embroidered with a single word, Clara. My heart sank. The intruder hadn't been trying to get in. They had already been inside, working from inside, watching from the basement, streaming the fabricated Clara image from a few feet below their daughter's room. The digital Clara on the cameras wasn't a ghost or a glitch. She was a mask, a cover, so the real intruder could watch without ever being seen. And the date on the chip, the day Lily was born, that meant someone knew about this family long before they hired a babysitter. Before they searched for one, before they posted online, before anyone knew they needed help. Someone selected them, prepared for them, and planned this long before a single camera ever flickered. When we saw Lily on that unauthorized live feed, somewhere dark, somewhere unfamiliar, somewhere she should never have been, the silhouette stepped into frame. And for the first time, we heard his voice, low, distorted, warped like it had passed through a dozen speakers. Now, Ethan screamed, Marissa collapsed. Detective Warren immediately traced the signal, barking orders to his team. I grabbed Ethan by the shoulders and forced him to look at me. We are going to find her. I swear to you, what followed was the most frantic, desperate hour of my entire career. The tech team pulled everything they could from the feed, lighting angles, wall textures, the hum of machinery. The reflections in Lily's eyes became our map. Marcus, our lead forensic analyst, zoomed in so far the pixels blurred into static, then sharpened again. Metal shelving, cold concrete, exposed pipes. Then we saw it. A number painted on one pipe, 27 billion. Warren whispered, storage district, east side. He didn't wait for backup. None of us did. Within minutes, we were in the car, sirens cutting through the night, Ethan and Marissa following in silence. The closer we got, the more the live feed distorted, like the intruder knew we were coming. At the facility, Warren kicked down the door to storage unit 27 billion. Inside was nothing, an empty room, bare floor, dead air. No Lily, no silhouette, no equipment, just dust. Ethan broke. He fell to his knees, sobbing, clawing at the concrete. Marissa was screaming Lily's name over and over, and God help me, I felt something break inside me too. But Marcus didn't give up. Check the adjacent units, he shouted. He spoofed the feed location. We ran, 27C empty, 27D empty. Then Warren froze in front of Unit 29A. The padlock was broken, fresh scrape marks on the floor, like something heavy had been dragged inside. He drew his gun, counted to 3, and we pushed the door open. And there she was, Lily, wrapped in her blanket, crying but alive on a tiny mattress on the far side of the unit. Marissa sprinted forward, scooping her up before I could even blink. Ethan collapsed next to them, tears pouring down his face. But the happiness lasted only seconds. Because in the back corner of the unit, the silhouette stood, tall, still, watching. A mask covered his face. Wires ran down his jacket, a portable transmitter in his hand. He wasn't shocked to see us. He had been waiting. Warren yelled for him to freeze. He didn't run, didn't flinch. He just tilted his head exactly the way digital Clara did and whispered, almost. Then he pressed a button on the transmitter and the entire building went dark. Every camera, every signal, every feed, gone. Officers swarmed in with flashlights. But he was already gone. Vanished into the maze of units, leaving behind only the transmitter and a single piece of fabric tucked beneath it. The same style gloves Clara wore, but smaller, child-sized, not a tool, not a costume. A trophy? We brought Lily to safety, and that night the FBI took over the case. The intruder was never found. Not his face, not his real identity, not his hideouts. But one thing was clear, he didn't choose Clara randomly. He didn't choose Ethan and Marissa randomly. He didn't choose Lily randomly. Everything from the hospital to Clara's disappearance to the digital reconstruction was part of a pattern, a method, a ritual of control. And almost ready now, he wasn't talking to them, he was talking to himself. Preparing, perfecting, evolving. Before he disappeared that night, he left one last message on the baby monitor system. A final transmission the tech team recovered after weeks of decoding. Next child soon. As an attorney, I can't prosecute a ghost. But as a mother, that message haunts me. And as Lauren Blake, this is the case that keeps me awake. Because somewhere out there, a man who only appears on cameras, a man who steals faces, steals children, and steals presence is still watching. Still searching, and still waiting for the next family who trusts the wrong screen. After finding the basement setup, the gloves, the router, the Clara blanket, Detective Warren ordered a deeper background sweep. If the intruder crafted a digital babysitter, then the original Clara James had to matter. There had to be a reason her face was chosen, and we found it, not in Ohio, not in state birth records, but in a missing persons file from 6 years earlier. A file from another state, a file with a single photo, a young woman. Warm eyes, soft smile, hair pulled back the same way the camera Clara wore it, and underneath the photo, name Clara Amelia James, status, missing. Last seen November 3, 2018. The same date written inside the baby monitor. Coincidence? No, the timelines overlapped too perfectly. But the true shock came when Warren dug into Clara's life history, her jobs, her addresses, her old apps. Something in her file connected her directly to Ethan and Marissa. Clara James used to work as a night shift diaper tech at the same hospital where Lily was born. She wasn't a babysitter. She was a former hospital worker who mysteriously disappeared years before Ethan and Marissa were even married. Which meant whoever created Digital Clara knew about her disappearance, knew her face, knew enough to resurrect her in pixel form. But why? That answer came from an unexpected source. A retired neurologist named Dr. Helen Cray, who had worked at the same hospital as Clara. When we showed her the photo, something in her expression collapsed. Clara didn't disappear, she said quietly. She was taken. Dr. Cray sat down, hands trembling, and told us what the hospital never released publicly. In 2018, several night shift nurses reported seeing a man wandering the neonatal wing. He said he was a technician. But something felt off. He never spoke. He just watched, observed, stood too close to the bassinets. Security couldn't find him. There was no name badge, no record of him entering. And then Clara went missing. On her final shift, she had filed a complaint. A man watching the newborns. No ID, avoids cameras. The hospital dismissed it as stress. 2 days later, the surveillance system glitched, then Clara vanished without a trace. Dr. Cray leaned closer to me. The man, she said, looked just like the silhouette behind your digital Clara. My blood ran cold. This wasn't random. Wasn't a hacker choosing a face from the internet. Someone recreated Clara because Clara had been part of their obsession for years. Clara was the first, the prototype, the template. And the reason this intruder used her image on Ethan and Marissa's cameras became horrifyingly clear. The intruder targeted newborns, just like the ones in the neonatal wing, just like Lily, and that blanket labeled Clara? It wasn't a tribute, it was a warning. The intruder wasn't trying to be Clara. The intruder was trying to finish what they started 6 years ago. Warren didn't waste a second. An APB went out. A citywide search, signal triangulations. But before law enforcement could even process the scale of what we uncovered, we received a new alert. Ethan's phone lit up with a push notification from the baby monitor app even though the device was seized. New live feed available? We clicked it and saw Lily, not in her aunt's guest room, not in her crib, but somewhere dark, somewhere unfamiliar, somewhere with the same metal desk and the same shelves we had seen reflected in Clara's eyes. The silhouette stepped forward, and for the first time he spoke one word, now.